Congressman, as the first progressive mayor of Chicago, in what way will you be different from the past 22 years, or even 42 years?
I think we need term limits for chief executive offices in Illinois, mayor, governor, president of the county board and those kind of things. And so there are still people all across America who kind of laugh at the way governance occurs in Chicago. I'm saying we've allowed the mayor's office to become pretty much all-encompassing. I'm saying the mayor's office runs everything, the Park District, the Board of Education, the Chicago Transit Authority, the Metropolitan Pier and Exposition Authority, the library, the schools, everything. I mean, that's it power just kind of accrued, and I'm not sure it was all any one particular mayor's fault or anything like that. I'm saying the citizens just kind of allowed it to happen, where we have a czar kind of mayor. I mean, I'm saying that's the way the system evolved. At the end of a Danny Davis administration 4-year term, I'd want to make sure that you didn't need a monitor to make sure that there was fairness in the hiring processes, that you didn't need an outside somebody to make sure that the city adhered to the Shackman Decree the way we've got now. I'd also want to make sure that pinstripe patronage would not have replaced the old patronage system that caused a lot of people to feel that they were just totally left out, locked out, could not go to City Hall with their resume, no matter what their credentials were, and get a job unless somebody sent them or spoke up for them or greased the wheels. I would want the city government to be open, transparent, where people could see how decisions were made, where they could know who got the contracts and were doing business, where there was public debate, where the city council actually functioned as a city council, where they deliberated in public discourse so that people knew what was taking place. I'd also want to make sure that we had a relationship between the city administration and law enforcement authorities so that some people in some neighborhoods would not feel that they just didn't get any justice from the police. And so those are some of the ways I would be different. I'd open up the process. I believe in lots of interaction with people. And so I'd be out at meetings all over the city, engaging citizens in discussions about what needs to happen and what should be going on. I've done that as a member of Congress. I did that when I was a member of the city council. I'm trying to do that with the campaign, although I admit that there are a lot of people who have serious difficulty with large-scale participation, or who have serious difficulty with certain concepts of democracy, where people who want to be engaged get the opportunity to do so and express themselves. But I'd do it anyway.
When we had Alderman Wagsback here a few months ago, I think it was the first time I heard the phrase forensic audit of the city's finances.
I'm in favor of a forensic audit, and I would actually want to initiate one. Not in terms of trying to be vindictive or in terms of trying to cast any kind of aspersions on what had gone on. But I think people have a need to know and a right to know. And so I would want to demystify, take some of the mystery out of public decision making so that citizens will have a much better handle on what has taken place, whatever the rationale is that people say is being used to base those decisions on, and then we have a different level of democracy as far as I'm concerned.
Congressman Davis, you talked about consolidating some healthcare services and having the services that the city, the direct services that the city provides now, possibly transferred to the county. I think all of us know that under the healthcare system we have now, in which the bottom line is that the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical industry must make their profit, no matter what the cost to everybody else of in health and mortality. There's no way that we're going to have a proper distribution of healthcare services to all areas of the city or the county. It's always going to be the case that the poor areas of the city are lacking essential services such as hospital care and specialty care. Would you use your position as mayor to advocate to the state for a state single-payer bill, which Mary Flowers will reintroduce in January, and to the our federal representatives for the legislation that needs to pass in order to allow a state to enact a single-payer bill, and then ultimately for the passage of H.R. 676. And by the way, thank you for being a co-sponsor of that in the past.
Well, absolutely I would. I was one of the few people on the Ways and Means Committee who advocated for a single-payer system, doing all of the deliberations as we went through writing the health reform bill, which I must admit was one of the most exciting, legislative things that I've been engaged in. And just about every time we'd have a discussion, one of the first things that I would say when it came my time, well, Mr. Chairman, let me just tell you, I'm in favor of a national health plan, single payer, everybody in, nobody out. We were delighted when we had Dr. Quentin Young come and testify at one of the hearings. Of course, I was engaged in that, and so that's my position wholeheartedly, and I would certainly continue to be an advocate.
I think one of the most exciting times in Chicago politics was when Harold Washington was mayor. And one of the things he did was really reach out to different constituencies and really facilitate the building of a progressive movement in Chicago. And I know it's early on in the campaign, but I was wondering whether there was possibilities for your campaign to reach out and do that kind of activity. Because electing one person really is not going to do the job. We need a real progressive movement in Chicago.
I agree wholeheartedly, and we would hope to do that. As a matter of fact, I helped Harold Washington reach out to many of those constituencies that I had relationships with that Harold didn't at that time. The Korean community, for example, was one. Same thing true in terms of the Hispanic relationship that I had developed with Rudy Lozano. Actually, when Rudy was assassinated, both his wife and his father cried in my arms that day, because Rudy and I had been kind of working, trying to piece together a coalition prior to the time that he was killed. And so, yes, the answer is unequivocally and without a doubt.
Okay, I'm going to ask a similar question I've asked a few of the other folks, and that is, in terms of education for the past, 10 years, we've had Renaissance, Renaissance 2010? Oh, we're already here. And we've had the growth of charter schools. We've had some kind of a cure that involves closing down schools, firing everybody. and it's kind of hard to put it all together unless you're really, following it every day. I'd just like to get your thoughts when you're mayor. What were your, what will your approach be to these issues that, have been prominent for the past 10 years?
I've never thought that charter schools were any kind of panacea. I've always been in favor of trying to correct public education in America. I actually served on the Education Committee in Congress until I got on Ways and Means. And all of the issues surrounding public education were an ongoing part of our discussions. You won't see a whole bunch of charter schools being developed under a Danny Davis administration because I'm not convinced that just providing additional opportunity for a few students really corrects public education. I also think that some of the hybrids and some of the alternatives that have been developed serve to undermine teachers' unions. And I don't view teachers' unions as culprits. As a matter of fact, I'm a former union delegate. I was a union delegate when I was about 22, 23 years old. Part of the reason I taught school for 6 years in the Chicago public school system, I think that educators deserve to be adequately compensated. I'm somewhat of a historian, and I've studied the history of some things, and I think it was scandalous the way that teachers were treated for a long time in many places, and that they had no choice except to organize, just as other people have organized. I think, though, that in order to really improve public education, especially in places where achievement is low, you've got to get the whole community turned on to education. So I've had my own experiences in terms of public education in Chicago, and I've got some notions and ideas about how to help it. But you got to get the community involved. You got to get the people involved. You got to get the parents involved. And you got to make education sort of a sine qua non as the way to go. And I think we'll see some real achievement if we do that.